Have you ever felt that inexplicable chill run down your spine when someone enters the room? That subtle yet unmistakable feeling that something isn't quite right. My dear friends, that sensation you're experiencing isn't just random. It's your inner wisdom speaking to you, trying to protect you from what I call spiritual toxicity. Today, we're going to explore something profound, something that many speakers shy away from discussing. We're going to delve deep into understanding the dark forces that sometimes manifest in human form around us. This isn't about fear or paranoia. It's about awareness, protection, and most importantly, spiritual. You see, in my decades of working with people from all walks of life, I've observed patterns, distinct behavioral signatures that reveal when someone's inner light has been corrupted by darkness. These aren't just personality quirks or temporary moods. They're deeply ingrained patterns that signal a fundamental disconnect from divine love and you. The first red flag manifests in how these individuals handle your joy and success. When you share good news, perhaps a promotion at work, an engagement, or even something as simple as finding the perfect apartment, watch carefully. The truly dark souls among us can't genuinely celebrate others' happiness. They might smile, but their eyes remain cold. They'll often follow your announcement with a subtle undermining comment, "Oh, that neighborhood isn't what it used to be," or "I hope you can handle the responsibility." This behavior stems from a profound spiritual vacuum within them. They've lost connection with the universal truth that joy multiplies when shared. Instead, they view life through a lens of scarcity, believing that someone else's success diminishes their own potential for happiness. But here's where it gets interesting, my friends. This isn't just about negativity. It's about energy vampirism. These individuals have learned to feed off the diminishment of others' joy. They've developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when you're riding high, and they feel compelled to bring you down to their vibrational level. The second red flag is their relationship with truth. Now, we're not talking about occasional white lies or social niceties. We're discussing a fundamental distortion of reality that goes beyond simple dishonesty. These souls have created their own alternative universe, where facts are flexible, and truth is whatever serves their purpose in the moment. Watch how they handle simple, verifiable facts. They'll often contradict themselves within the same conversation, yet show no discomfort or awareness of these contradictions. When confronted, they don't just deny. They create elaborate alternative narratives, often casting themselves as victims of misunderstanding or persecution. This manipulation of truth isn't just lying. It's a spiritual corruption that runs so deep, they've lost the ability to distinguish between reality and their own fabrications. They've disconnected from the universal consciousness that binds all truth together, creating instead a fragmented reality that serves only their ego. Let me share something powerful with you. In my work with thousands of individuals, I've discovered that this disconnect from truth often manifests physically. These people frequently can't maintain eye contact during meaningful conversation. Their eyes dart away, not from shame or shyness, but because maintaining connection requires acknowledging truth, and truth is their kryptonite. The third red flag is their relationship with vulnerability, both their own and others. Spiritually toxic individuals have an almost predatory instinct for identifying and exploiting others' weak points. They collect sensitive information like a hunter collecting trophies, storing it away for a few. But here's the fascinating paradox. While they're expert at detecting others' vulnerabilities, they're pathologically incapable of showing genuine vulnerability themselves. Their personal stories, when shared, are carefully curated performances designed to manipulate rather than connect. They might share what seems like personal information, but notice how these revelations never actually expose any real weakness or create genuine intimacy. This one-way vulnerability creates an energetic imbalance in relationships. Healthy connections are built on mutual sharing and trust, like a spiritual dance of give and take. But these individuals only take, creating a vortex that gradually drains those around them of their emotional and spiritual energy. When you begin to recognize these patterns, you might feel a sense of heaviness, perhaps even fear. But I want you to understand something crucial. This awareness isn't about fear. It's about empowerment. It's about honoring your intuition and protecting your spiritual well-being. Think of this knowledge as spiritual self-defense. Just as you wouldn't walk through a dangerous neighborhood without awareness, you shouldn't navigate your spiritual journey without understanding the signs of toxic souls. This isn't about judgment. It's about discernment. Remember, my friends, every soul starts pure, connected to the divine source. These patterns we're discussing are learned behaviors, often arising from deep wounds and disconnection from universal love. While understanding these signs is crucial for your protection, hold space in your heart for compassion. These individuals are also on their own journey, however misaligned it might be. As we continue our exploration, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Think about times when your inner wisdom tried to warn you about someone, but perhaps you ignored it in favor of logical explanations or social politeness. Those moments weren't coincidences. They were your higher self trying to protect you. In my years of spiritual work, I've learned that the universe often sends us messages through feelings and intuitions before giving us concrete evidence. That unexplained anxiety around certain people, that subtle draining of energy in specific company, these are spiritual alarm systems designed to protect us from toxic influences. Remember, this journey of awareness isn't about becoming paranoid or judgmental. It's about honoring your spiritual discernment and protecting your divine light. As we move forward, we'll explore more signs that reveal spiritual toxicity, but always from a place of love, understanding, and spiritual growth. Let this knowledge serve not as a weapon, but as a shield, protecting your light while allowing you to move through the world with compassion and wisdom. For in understanding darkness, we become better stewards of light. Now, as we delve deeper into our exploration of spiritual toxicity, let's discuss the fourth red flag, one that manifests in how these individuals handle power and control. This sign is particularly insidious because it often masquerades as care or concern. You see, spiritually toxic people have an obsessive need to control their environment and the people around them, but they're clever about it. They don't usually present as obvious dictators. Instead, they wrap their controlling behavior in a cloak of concern, helpfulness, or even love. Watch for the subtle ways they try to influence your decisions. They might offer unsolicited advice about every aspect of your life, from your career choices to your relationships, from your spiritual practices to your daily routines. But this isn't the loving guidance of a true friend or mentor. It's a calculated attempt to shape your reality according to their desires. They often use phrases like, "I'm only telling you this because I care," or "I hate to see you make this mistake." But notice how their advice always seems to lead you away from your own intuition and toward choices that align with their interests or keep you dependent on them. This control extends beyond direct advice. They're masters at creating subtle dependencies. They might offer help in ways that make you feel obligated to them. They position themselves as indispensable in your life, making you question your ability to function without their input or assistance. But here's what's really happening on a spiritual level. These individuals are attempting to suppress your divine right to free will. They're trying to interrupt your soul's natural journey of growth and self-discovery. Why? Because your spiritual autonomy threatens their need for control. In my experience working with spiritual communities worldwide, I've observed how these controllers often target people during periods of transition or vulnerability. They can sense when someone is at a crossroads, questioning their path or seeking guidance, like spiritual predators. They swoop in during these moments of uncertainty, offering seemingly perfect solutions while gradually tightening their grip. The fifth red flag manifests in their relationship with boundaries of both their own and others. This is perhaps one of the most revealing signs of spiritual toxicity because it shows how they view the fundamental sanctity of individual souls. Healthy souls understand and respect the energetic boundaries that exist between individuals. They recognize that each person's spiritual space is sacred and inviolable. But toxic souls, they view boundaries as obstacles to be overcome. Watch how they react when you set a simple boundary. It could be something as basic as saying you need some alone time, or that certain topics are off limits for discussion. A toxic soul will take this as a personal affront. They might accuse you of being selfish, dramatic, or unnecessarily difficult. They'll try to make you feel guilty for protecting your own spiritual space. But while they're busy violating your boundaries, notice how they maintain rigid, impenetrable walls around themselves. They might share information about others freely, but their own lives remain carefully guarded fortresses. They demand transparency from others while remaining opaque themselves. This asymmetrical approach to boundaries reveals a fundamental spiritual truth about these individuals. They don't recognize the divine sovereignty of other souls and their distorted worldview. Other people exist as extensions of their own needs and desires, not as independent spiritual beings worthy of respect and autonomy. The sixth and final red flag we'll explore today is perhaps the most subtle yet most revealing. Their relationship with silence and stillness. You see, truly evolved souls are comfortable with silence. They understand that in quietness, we connect most deeply with divine wisdom, but spiritually toxic individuals. They're allergic to silence. Watch how they handle moments of quiet reflection. They'll fill every silence with noise. Whether it's constant talking, playing with their phone, or creating some form of distraction. They can't bear the weight of stillness because silence forces them to confront their enemy. This aversion to silence manifests in their interactions with others too. They'll interrupt meaningful pauses in conversation, rush to fill contemplative moments with chatter, and become visibly uncomfortable during periods of shared silence. Why? Because silence threatens their carefully constructed false reality. In silence, truth emerges. In stillness, masks fall away. And for these individuals, that prospect is terrifying. They've invested so much energy in maintaining their illusions that the pure truth of silence becomes unbearable. This is why they often surround themselves with constant noise and activity. They'll keep multiple sources of distraction going at once. Television in the background, phone always in hand, continuous conversation or movement. It's not about being busy or energetic. It's about avoiding the truth that silence brings. But here's what's truly fascinating about this pattern. Their aversion to silence often extends to their inability to truly listen to others. They might appear to be listening, but watch carefully. They're usually just waiting for their turn to speak, planning their next words rather than truly absorbing what's being said. This inability to embrace silence reveals a deeper spiritual truth about these individuals. They are disconnected from the divine silence that exists at the core of all being. They've lost touch with the peaceful void from which all creation springs. As we bring these insights together, I want you to understand something crucial. Recognizing these signs isn't about condemning or avoiding people. It's about developing the spiritual discernment necessary to protect your own light while maintaining compassion for all souls, even those who have lost their way. Think of these red flags as spiritual wake-up calls, divine warnings that help you navigate your path while maintaining your energetic integrity. When you encounter these signs in others, let them serve as reminders to strengthen your own spiritual boundaries and deepen your connection to truth. Remember, my friends, every soul has the potential for redemption, for reconnection with divine love. The toxic patterns we've discussed today are symptoms of deep spiritual wounds, manifestations of profound disconnection from universal truth. While it's essential to protect yourself from their influence, hold space in your heart for them. Now that we've identified these 6 critical red flags, let's explore how these signs interweave and create complex patterns in our daily interactions. Because understanding these patterns isn't just about recognition, it's about developing the spiritual antibodies necessary to maintain your own light in the presence of darkness. You see, when we encounter individuals exhibiting these toxic traits, our first instinct is often to try harder. We think if we could just explain ourselves better, love more completely, or be more understanding, we can somehow heal or change them. This, my friends, is a dangerous misconception that stems from our own beautiful but sometimes misguided capacity for compassion. Let me share something profound with you. Your light cannot illuminate someone who is actively choosing darkness. This isn't about your capacity to love or heal. It's about their fundamental choice to remain disconnected from universal truth. Think about how these red flags create a web of manipulation in your life. When someone can't celebrate your joy, distorts truth, exploits vulnerability, seeks control, violates boundaries, and fears silence. They're manifesting a comprehensive system of spiritual manipulation designed to dim your light to match their darkness. The real danger lies in how these patterns slowly normalize themselves in our lives. Like a frog in slowly heating water, we often don't realize how far we've strayed from our spiritual truth until we're already deeply entangled in their toxic web. This is where spiritual discernment becomes crucial. You must learn to trust that first intuitive hit, that subtle feeling of unease that whispers something isn't right here. Your soul recognizes spiritual toxicity long before your logical mind can process it. We've been conditioned to doubt our intuition. We've been taught to be reasonable, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to look for logical explanations for behavior that our spirit instantly recognizes as toxic. This disconnection from our intuitive wisdom leaves us vulnerable to spiritual predators. Consider how these toxic individuals specifically target those with the brightest lights. They're drawn to authentic, compassionate souls like moths to a flame. Why? Because your light illuminates their darkness and they have two choices: face their own shadow or try to dim your light. Unfortunately, they usually choose the latter. This is why you'll often find them in helping professions, spiritual communities, or positions of trust. They're drawn to environments where people are open, vulnerable, and seeking connection. These settings provide perfect camouflage for their toxic behaviors while giving them access to the spiritual energy they feed upon. But let's go deeper into understanding how these patterns affect your own spiritual journey. When you're constantly exposed to these toxic influences, you might notice subtle changes in your own behavior. You might find yourself second-guessing your intuition, diminishing your own light to make others comfortable, accepting behavior that your soul knows is wrong, compromising your boundaries in the name of peace, losing touch with your own spiritual truth. This gradual erosion of your spiritual sovereignty is the real danger of prolonged exposure to toxic individuals. It's not just about dealing with difficult people. It's about maintaining your connection to divine truth in the face of... Think about how these toxic patterns have influenced your own spiritual journey. Perhaps you found yourself doubting your own experiences, questioning your perceptions, or compromising your values to maintain harmony with someone exhibiting these red flags. This self-doubt is not accidental. It's a direct result of exposure to spiritual toxicity. When someone consistently denies your reality, violates your boundaries, and manipulates your emotions, they create a fog of confusion that obscures your connection to divine truth. But here's the beautiful truth. Your soul always knows. Beneath the layers of doubt, beneath the confusion and manipulation, your spirit maintains its connection to universal wisdom. This is why toxic individuals work so hard to keep you disconnected from your intuition, because they know that in moments of clear spiritual connection, their influence over you dissolves. Think of your spiritual discernment like a muscle. Every time you honor your intuition, every time you acknowledge those subtle warnings from your soul, you strengthen this muscle. Every time you stand firm in your truth, despite manipulation, you increase your spiritual sovereignty. The process of reclaiming your spiritual authority begins with recognition. Not just recognition of toxic patterns in others, but recognition of how these patterns have influenced your own behavior and beliefs. Have you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? Have you ignored your intuition in favor of logical explanations? Have you compromised your boundaries to keep the peace? These questions aren't meant to induce guilt or shame. They're invitations to reclaim your spiritual sovereignty. Because once you recognize how toxic patterns have influenced your life, you can begin the sacred work of realignment. This realignment isn't always comfortable. When you begin to honor your spiritual discernment, you might face resistance, not just from toxic individuals, but from others who have also normalized these unhealthy patterns. You might be labeled as difficult, unreasonable, or unforgiving. Remember this, your spiritual truth is not negotiable. Your soul's wisdom is not up for debate. You have a divine right and responsibility to protect your spiritual well-being. As you develop this deeper understanding of toxic patterns, you'll notice something remarkable. Your ability to recognize these red flags becomes almost instantaneous. It's like developing spiritual night vision. Suddenly you can see clearly what was once hidden in shadow. This clarity isn't about becoming cynical or suspicious. It's about aligning so completely with your spiritual truth that any deviation from universal love and wisdom becomes immediately apparent. It's about trusting your soul's wisdom above the clever words and manipulative actions of those who would dim your light. Think of this awareness as a spiritual immune system. Just as your physical immune system recognizes and responds to threats automatically, your spiritual discernment can identify and protect you from toxic influences without conscious effort. But like any immune system, it needs to be supported and strengthened through conscious choice and consistent practice.